Hi, everyone. Go Blue. And we're back for another episode of Wolverines Live with our all-star panel and the questions to be asked. The satisfying win against East Carolina, was it slightly unsatisfying? And the UNLV preview, all coming up next on Michigan Wolverines Live. All right. So without further ado, I'm just going to do a couple of very quick housekeeping notes here. It is the 106th episode, and my name is John Diadamo. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. On Twitter, it's John Diadamo. Very, very simple. And just like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. We got our panel back. All I ask is that you share it around. If everybody invites a friend, then we double the people, and that's always a good thing. So without further ado, I am going to bring in our all-star panel here, starting with Nelson Hubbell. How's it going,
doing?
man?
Thank you for having me on. Always good to be back.
Okay. Clearly my AirPods are messing up, so I'm going to do this.
No worries. We're good.
So, okay.
We good?
Yeah, for this second. And then, yeah, I don't know what's up with my AirPods. But anyway, let's also bring in Tanner. Tanner, great to see you as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the all-star adjective to describe us. I was an all-star in 6th grade baseball, so you're not wrong, John. I appreciate you speaking facts.
Absolutely. So thanks for being here, everybody, again. So why don't we go ahead and start with a quick reminder that you get your Voice of College Football merch at our merch store now with free shipping, and that includes Michigan gear. So obviously we finally had a game of football.
Yeah,
Michigan played football, and it was a game of football. 30-3 victory in almost every statistical metric. With the exception of running yards, Michigan kind of blew away East Carolina. But, there's just kind of that little bit of, hey, second half, once JJ comes out, then, you kind of had a bit of from there, normally you would see a backup QB or something come in and keep bringing the score up. So that's, I'd say, the one thing I was like, But, I'd love to get the initial takes, initial feedback on the game, starting with Nelson.
I was pretty impressed, honestly, defensively, communication-wise. Klinkskill talked about it in his press conference this week, but that was the one thing that blew me away the most, frankly. I thought East Carolina was going to try and test them a little bit. Frankly, didn't ever see an opportunity for him to do it. Sab played great. And then Page played, which we weren't sure about, right, going into the game. But I think that really, frankly, I was shocked at how well the defense played because I expected some issues with the injuries. And then offensively, dominant passing attack, rushing attack that struggled. It is what it is. They didn't play that bad. East Carolina loaded up against the run. So overall, a good game for Michigan. I'm not going to ask for too much more than that. And we'll get into the possessions and the limit of that and why the score maybe wasn't as big as it was later on.
Absolutely. So, Tanner, what was your kind of initial take?
Yeah, so I was at the game, sat in the corner, had a great view, was joined by my buddy Brandon Justice, who hooked up the tickets. So shout out BJ. We had a great time. And I thought that Michigan played pretty well, obviously first game. So there's always things to work on. But, with this non-conference, you have 3 opportunities to work on a lot of different things. Obviously we're going to talk about JJ McCarthy. He was absolutely fantastic. And I talked about this on a couple of the shows that I do, Blue by 90, but I think the biggest thing for me with JJ and the biggest takeaway that I had from the game was the subtle movements in the pocket. You could see his eyes manipulating the defense. He threw open Roman Wilson on his last touchdown, which was a dot, but he also manipulated with CJ down in the flat, the kind of one of the back seven guys had to kind of come down to CJ. And I mean, just there's a lot of different things that JJ showed me this game that has me very excited, regardless of who they were playing. So was a great win, especially when you, like Nelson kind of alluded to, you look around college football. There were some big blowouts, but I think there was a lot of games where possessions were limited due to the new clock rules. So I think we talked about that last week too, right? Where, we predicted maybe some higher scoring, but that did come into effect and limited the possessions that Michigan had on offense, especially with the starters in.
Absolutely. And one thing, I'll get your take too, Nelson. I mean, JJ McCarthy, the prayers of Michigan fans were answered with respect to just how, I'm not going to say the word elite because everybody's saying elite, but I am going to say he looked damn good in that pocket and probably the best Michigan quarterback we've seen since Henne? I mean, it's been a while since we've had somebody who really had control of the pocket, had the game, not just game management, but can make pretty much any play on the field he wants to. And Kirk Campbell as the play caller, combined with the fact that East Carolina had a good run defense, JJ got spotlit heavily. And I think that was really huge. It remains to be seen if with the different with Sharon Moore, how that'll change. But I think for this first game, what's your take on how JJ did, Nelson?
Well, the ball was, I know he has a good arm. We've seen it last year, but it really just seemed like the ball was jumping out of his hand better than it has before. He sort of alluded to that same thing, after the game and the post game, and talked about how he didn't feel like he was having to push it when he wanted to put a little more zip on the passes with that shoulder injury that he dealt with last year. Because if we forget, but he did miss some time last offseason, quite a bit of time with an injury. And so just missing the reps, I think, is a big thing. But also just for arm strength and stuff like that, but also reps with your receivers to get a report with them. It didn't look like that was an issue at all. He was in rhythm. I think, what did he go, 14 for his first 16 or something like that? Something, crazy, right? And his completion percentage was a Michigan record for 30 or more passes. So he looked great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like I mentioned earlier, just it's subtle, right? It's not like he's a much different quarterback, but the way he commands and manipulates the pocket. There was a throw to Cornelius Johnson over the middle where he had some pressure in his face and he was on his back foot and just fires a rope in there. I think his arm is fully healthy. I don't know at what point it was fully healthy last year, but you could see some of the limitations where, hey, we've seen him throw deep balls as a freshman that were on the money. That was kind of one of his biggest things. And so to see that, I don't think there was a big long throw in this game, but there was a throw to Roman Wilson that would have been a touchdown, but there was PI on the play and it was on the money. So I think he's a fantastic. Sorry, my puppy's in the background making noise.
Your puppy agrees.
Yes, he does. Yes, this is Dexter. He's made his appearance twice in a row now. My wife's on her way home.
Love it.
But yeah, I thought he had a fantastic start to the season. I think what you saw were kind of some glimpses of him taking that next step that we all hope he will. So I'm very excited to see the progression. I thought Kirk Campbell did a fantastic job. And this also, guys, remember, we're talking about the running game struggling. You had 3 plays at the goal or at your own goal line, trying to just get out from the shadow of your goalpost. And then you had whatever the hell they were doing, trying to get Donovan his touchdown, 4 straight runs up the middle. But also JJ's legs are turned off, right? There's no reads. And they're still coming out in that shotgun format. The shotgun formation where it's most likely going to be a read on the end, and they're just giving it to the running back. So I think the run game is going to get better. You have the offensive line that is kind of gelling. Hopefully starts to gel, and I'm feeling very good about everything.
Yeah, when we talk about, and I think this is a key piece that you just brought up with respect to the O-line, because there were a couple of factors. People were saying, hey, the run game wasn't what it usually looks like. Well, we also have to remember Sharon Moore was out. He's the line coach. Number 2, they're trying out. They have NOC, and they're trying to have this tackle battle. So they're trying out these play. Obviously, Carson Barnhart normally plays right tackle. He played left tackle. They're trying Miles Hinton out at right tackle. And a new center, which is kind of massive when you think about the total cohesion of the offense. So don't you think that will take a second to just, once they finally get that tackle battle squared away, then they can really start to gel as a unit?
For sure. I mean, really, I thought the weakest part of the offensive line was Hinton. He talked about it. He said, I need to play better. And he does. I mean, he definitely struggled at times. There were snaps where, his struggles didn't affect the play at all. But I noticed it. And so, that's to be improved on. And part of that is just what people don't realize so much about football is just communication, and I guess I'm harping on it this episode, with the secondary, but it's the same thing on the offensive line. You talk about bringing a new center, getting people lined up, getting people in the right position, getting the right assignments, blitzers, whatever it is, like that sort of stuff. You have to be playing, together a lot to sort of gel and get figured out. And so until they sort that tackle battle out, which I think they will by the time they play Rutgers, most likely, ideally, maybe a week before, but I kind of, you give everyone a chance this week. And then last week they had their shot. So, you rotate with Henderson at left tackle and then Jones at right. And then you kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like. And so maybe by week 3, we have a better idea. And 4, I feel like for sure will be that audition of the starting offensive line for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Hinton looked, pass pro was fine, but obviously the run blocking is where Trente Jones is going to be much better. And I don't know if I have to imagine the pass blocking will probably be pretty equal. You think about last year, it was a battle in the spring for Jones and Carson Barnhart. And Jones kind of won that, kind of going away. I mean, there was no conversation last year that I recall from any of the insider message boards that I read or just anything in general coming from Schembechler Hall that it was anything but Trente Jones' job. And then obviously he goes down with an injury and, kind of comes back, but maybe isn't as effective. So he's a guy that's always had a lot of upside. You saw him as the 6-0 lineman in their unbalanced package, mauling guys. I mean, just mauling on Blake's. Blake had like a 22-yard run where he had a nice jump cut, but Trente Jones just mauled, crashed down on the end and just had a huge hole for Blake. So I have to imagine similar to the quarterback battle last year, it's going to be an audition in these games. That's perks of playing a really weak non-conference. So I think they're going to have some time to get adjusted, and also Drake Nugent to come in and kind of, have the guys learn how he wants to call things as compared to Olu last year. So, the great thing is Michigan doesn't have Penn State or Ohio State until November. So they have time to get these guys ready. I think they're going to play their best football as we get towards the end of the season. They seem to always kind of ascend at the right time the last couple of years, especially. So I feel really good about where things are at. And I'm really excited to see LaDarius Henderson. He's a guy who probably was a 3rd or 4th round pick, a day 2 pick last year coming out. So so I'm very excited to see him at left tackle. I love Carson Barnhart and what he's done for the program, but I just think, if you want to win a national championship, you need an elite left tackle. And I think Henderson has that upside to bring that to the table. So I think this weekend we're going to see both those guys get a chance to start and see how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into that game, because we're definitely going to dive into that one, but I do want to get your general takes on how you think Jesse Minter did as a head coach, how you think Kirk Campbell did as the play caller.
Yeah,
Sorry, Nelson.
Yeah, sure. So Minter looked like very calm, collected. This is such a well-oiled machine for Michigan at this point. It's hard to see much of a difference, realistically. Where it gets different is play calling, which is, with Kirk Campbell, definitely lean more pass heavy in the first half and then run heavy in the second. I think he made a comment about it being 50-50 balance. I think it might have been 31 snaps each side. And so, I think that was more of like an intentional thing than anything in a blowout win. If they wanted to go and score more points, I think Davis Warren has the arm and they have the talent, depth wise to go out there and, throw the ball a little more, but they didn't need to. But Minter did good. One thing that I thought that was in my head, I'm like, I wonder if he'll do it. That made me feel like something Harbaugh would have done is at the end of the game when ECU got this pity field goal I was just sitting there like, you got to be kidding me. Like, just get over and go throw the ball and try and score a touchdown. But I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking if Minter calls a timeout here, I'm going to love this dude. Because that's the type of thing that Harbaugh would have done. Just like, dude, like, come on, you're inside the 20 or 15, wherever they were at. It's like, just score, just try to go for a touchdown here. Take a shot. Yeah, what does it matter? But yeah, so that was like my only, I guess, side note. But I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, look, there's a lot of in-game responsibilities on a game day for a head coach, but especially in these kinds of games, like everything that they do throughout the week is preparing, and Harbaugh's still there. So for Minter, it's really much more about management than anything in particular with the game plan or any play calling on either side. So I thought he handled it well. When JJ took that targeting hit, I maybe would have pulled him immediately. That was also kind of very dirty. I don't know, like ECU, just a side note, like there was a couple plays that were just randomly chippy from their side. I don't know why they were talking a lot of trash, which, hey, it's football. I love it. But like when you're going after guys, you know, and leaping into their head, it gets a little bit, you know, it's a little boneheaded and just a little bit ridiculous. But other than that, though, you know, thought it was fine. Thought the rotations were solid. Got a lot of guys on the field. I don't know the exact snap count. I have to assume probably 80 to 90 guys saw the field. So, you know, thought he did relatively well. And now, you know, we have the split head coaches this week with Jay and Mike Hart, and then Sharon next week. So excited to see how these guys do. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but, you know, I'll give Jesse Minter an A. I mean, not much more that I would have wanted or needed from him.
Can I get, like, I want to point back at that targeting, but the broadcast on Peacock, I don't remember if it was Tirico or who it was, or maybe it was Sims. Both of them were just like, I don't see any leaping. Or no, it was the rules expert that they have come in. I forget his name. Absolutely hate that guy. He's been in other ones before. He's just so annoying. He's such a homer for the officials. I'm like, you have no impartiality here. Anyways, and he was just hammering. I was like, that's not a targeting. That's not a targeting. He didn't leap. He didn't lead with his head. I'm like, everything that he did in this play looks like a targeting to me. Like, I don't know what angle you're looking at, dude, but this is textbook. It was textbook. That I was furious on the couch. I was just yelling at the TV.
Yeah, Peacock.
Yeah, I watched it. So I rewatched it, but I skipped through a lot of stuff because I had it on my iPad and I was watching the game Sunday just to get my thoughts on, you know, the TV broadcast versus being in the stadium. And I will say the quality was great. I didn't have to watch it live, though. I know there's a lot of issues with folks, but watching on my iPad, like the replay, it was nice. It was weird though. They like showed the entire broadcast, so I didn't get commercials, but I got like halftime. I was like, can I just fast forward through this? So, but yeah, very interesting. I had heard that as well. But I will say Mike Tirico, Ann Arbor legend. He's been on a lot of big Michigan games in his life. So great to have him back. I honestly don't know the last time he did a Michigan game. So it was nice to have him back announcing. He's got a great voice in college football. So that was nice. And yeah, was interesting though on some of the comments that I'd heard from the expert. I mean, the guy jumped and led with his head into JJ's head. I don't know what else you need to see there.
Yeah.
There you go. See, DS says it all. Yeah, the review expert was wrong a few times. Yeah,
he's always wrong. I swear that guy is always wrong when it comes to reviews. I've never seen him right. I love Gene Steratore. You know, he's actually one of my favorites. The guy on Fox, I don't remember.
Dean Blandino.
Blandino. I like Blandino too.
You like Blandino? I got a friend who has mad beef with Blandino. Like one of the guys at my wedding hates Dean. I don't know. Every time he comes on, he just roast him. It's electric content, but I don't know where the beef initiated from. That's
funny. Yeah, no, I like those guys, but you know, whoever NBC has, I don't remember his name. He's just always wrong. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. That's a whole tangent.
Yeah. So I think one thing I think we can all agree that JJ is the #1 impact player of this past game. But I'd love to hear everybody's #2 impact player, you know, somebody else that they thought really stood out. So we'll start with Tanner.
Ooh, good. I'm going with Kenneth Grant. I didn't want that to get taken.
Jason's going to love
He was outside of JJ McCarthy. He had the highest PFF grade. On that interception that Mikey Sanderson caught, he is the one who rushed through the interior on a stunt that caused Mason Garcia to have no time to throw off his back foot, which is why that ball came out so underthrown and allowed Mikey to undercut it. Grant was a monster in the pass game, in the run game. Like they weren't running anywhere. And you know, Harbaugh calls him God's gift to football. I mean, you know, 6'3", 340 pounds right now, I think is what he's listed at. I mean, with that movement, man, he's like Mozzie Smith plus potentially.
He's really good.
Like I think he's like a Jordan Davis level player, potential first round pick because he's got so much athleticism and he's only a sophomore. He looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way he was running. One of the things I loved about how this defense was playing is the angles that they were taking. And on a run play that got outside up the sideline a little bit, maybe like 3 yards, Grant was taking, like, knowing he's quick, by the way. He's much quicker than you realize. But he was taking an angle that was leading him to stop the ball carrier downfield. Like, it was just like a smart play that I noticed, and just the way he came off of his block, like saw the play, came off of his blocker, and ran upfield. I thought that was, just a smart play for a sophomore. Like the pick on Grant, I'm just going to have to go with Wilson. Roman Wilson, it's an easy pick. Yeah. I actually have a feeling that John might take Keon Sabb anyways. I'm not sure if he was leaning Sabb or Wilson, but 3 touchdowns. What can you say? 6 receptions, 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. My favorite one, that McCarthy fit into what I guess John Gruden back in the day would have called the turkey hole in that corner of the end zone. And Wilson went up and got it, and pretty good coverage. So I thought he played great.
Yeah. I'm going to go Keon Sabb. I mean, I easily could go Roman Wilson. I could easily go Kenneth Grant, but just to be different, I'll go Keon Sabb. He had, what did he have? Like five total tackles, 2 assists. And just like for his first game is like a real bona fide starter safety. To be able to just have that kind of impact on the team, I thought was really impressive. I mean, he's basically coming in because both of our starting safeties were out with injuries. And some players did that and they didn't look like Keon Sabb. So I think it was very notable what he was able to do in the game.
I want to give an honorable mention real quick, Nelson. Sorry. Ernest Hausman. Monster.
Good one.
Going to be very, very good. Him, Colson, and Barrett is a really solid trio of linebackers. Yeah. And Jimmy Rolder didn't play either, who I thought had a pretty strong end to his freshman year last year. So, Ernest Hausman, I think we talked about this. I watched him at the Big House last year when Nebraska came to town. I was like, who is this dude? And he's just all over the field. He's so explosive. An unheralded recruit from Columbus, Nebraska. I spent 10 years in Nebraska, so I know the geography. That's the only reason I know that. And just going to be a ball player, man. I'm very excited to see him continue to grow in this defense because he might have been my number 2 pick, honestly, because he had some great plays, some great tackles. So I'm excited to see Ernest Hausman's continuation of his growth.
I agree with you. I wanted to get to maybe a guy that just kind of surprised me in general throughout, what I'm hearing through camp and into the season is getting playing time is good. At defensive tackle, I think is Mike Good. He didn't play at all last year. He was pretty solid with Oregon State the year prior. He came in as a sort of a grad transfer with an extra year, like COVID year. I think he's a 6-year player, and it's getting to see. I think he dropped some weight, which might be part of the reason he's getting on the field now. But seeing him just get out there in general was, and plugging up holes was, he didn't make any splash plays. He didn't do anything, surprising, but I was surprised to see him even get on the field. Maybe that's a sign of the depth of the, interior of the defensive line, but he was out there. I mean, he was one of the early rotations, he was in the first quarter. I saw him on the field and I went, he's actually getting out there. Last year we didn't see hardly any of him until end of game scenarios. So that was just an interesting side note, I guess, that I had.
Yeah, and Michigan went. I'm trying to do they can go 10 deep on the D line because you have. I mean, you think about it at the edge spots. You have McGregor, you have Moore, you have Stewart, you have Harrell, and you have TJ Guy, and then at DT you have Jenkins, Graham, Grant, Benny, and Good. So you've got, and they all played a ton, and they were rotating a lot. So I think that's going to be, and there was really no drop off. I think that's going to be huge as we get later in the season to have that depth, to keep guys fresh, and let in those big games your stars play 65, 70 snaps because they have those legs to do so. So I'm very excited about that development. I did not expect to see Cam Good come in and play as much as he did. He looked great. I mean, he looked really good, which last year did not play at all, like you said, Nelson. He
was kind of I think he came into the offseason overweight, or came into the fall camp overweight last year and was just trying to catch up the whole time. If I remember correctly, that was the story. And he looked quicker this year. He looked good. He's, I think, a 6-year player. And thank you for correcting me. It was Cam. I could not remember his first name.
Yeah. Just, and this is something I pointed out last year on some different shows, but just the hallmark of Minner's defense is the amount of people that you see on these stat sheets having impacts. Just like you've said, it's not just limited to one or two. And I think it's not that Mike McDonald didn't do this, but I really think that Minner has this. It's almost like, you know how like the New England Patriots had like this, the whole or like Alabama, they have this whole systematic approach. It's not about one player, it's about the unit. And I feel like his defense, Minner's defense, really speaks to that. You have so many players contributing.
Well, it's really interesting because Don Brown, it was sort of all surrounded by one player at the Viper. You know, like that's a different style. Brown was, all right, the Viper's your dude, and then let's, corners are going to have to press up or play, solo man coverage without a safety help. And we're just going to hope for the best. And it's a breath of fresh air to see a defense that is more of a system like you're talking about. What Mike McDonald brought in and Minter has continued.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, before we get into UNLV, I do have two announcements that just so that everybody knows, you can do if you want access to some of our watch parties, Mark's betting guide that he does. So you can, if you're doing your betting, you've got a betting guide with multiple media outlets on there. Our Discord chat, you have two ways to have access to those things. You can either join our Patreon, Mark Rogers, patreon.com/Mark Rogers TV, $5. Or you can become a YouTube member for as low as $2.99. Either way, you're getting the Discord, you're getting access to the watch parties and some of the stuff that we're going to be doing all year through. And when you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as Jason pointed out, thank you, Jason, just have the link for Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football, so that when you need to get that dog food, or you need to get that tailgating grill, or whatever the case may be, you have that link, click it, and then Mark Rogers gets a couple of bucks. And what is wrong with that? That's all I gotta say. He does a great job here. So with all of that said, Michigan is about to go ahead and in the big house face UNLV with, as you mentioned, a 2 head coach setup, right? So first half, Jay Harbaugh, second half, Mike Hart. Nelson, I'll start with you. First thought about UNLV. I know you've been preparing some stuff on it.
The team as a whole, defensively, they didn't play very well last week, even though they gave up 14 points. More of a bend, don't break style. They gave up, I have to check here, just over 400 yards total on the game. So giving up 14 points to Bryant, not bad. Giving up 400 yards, not good. So that's that. Offensively is the more interesting side. I'd say their running game is very good. They ran the ball for 250 yards or 250 plus yards. It's right up there. They played really well. They have a lot of backs that they can go to. Their backs it's a weird thing though. Okay. So they have Vincent Davis, Jaden Thomas, and Courtney Reese, who are all their 3 like smaller dudes, and Donovan Lester. So the 3 smaller guys are 5'9", 5'9", and 5'8", and they got the most touches. Donovan Lester is 6'2", so he's a little bit bigger of a back, but they rotate through. Reese is the guy to watch. So last year against Notre Dame, I think Reese is a 5th year now. So technically it was his senior year last year, but Reese came in and put up 142 yards on 11 carries against Notre Dame's defense. So he can totally go off for one game. Last week, ho hum for most guys on their backfield, but they still somehow racked up that many yards just because they were rotating through. And then at quarterback, Doug Brumfield. I liken him to, he's a veteran, but I liken him to the type of guy who is good at a couple different things. He can run it very well. He can pass it very well at times. Pretty inefficient at both. So it's sort of this thing where you don't know what you're going to get from him. It was his first year last year, so maybe the efficiency comes this year and he steps it up. I'd be interested to see how he does, considering that inefficiency, because he's capable of having very good games and he's capable of having not so good games. So we'll see how that plays out. And then I think the last guy that we really can't forget, and this is something that I've been hammering, in my top 3 players for UNLV against Michigan article that I wrote, was Ricky White. Okay, just pause on that. Trigger warning, Ricky White. Okay, guys, like that guy. Yes, that Ricky White. Yes, Michigan State Ricky White, who went off for 200 yards in the most forgettable year of Michigan football in the last since Rich Rod, maybe, or worse. You know, it might have been worse than Rich Rod year. It was a bad season, and it was him. That was the dude who torched us. So, you know, White, I think he is their top receiver. So I think they'll take some deep shots with him. Their passing game isn't their bread and butter. So I'm curious to see how that plays itself out. But Michigan killer Ricky White on the loose.
So, you know, I'll be honest, I have an iPad in front of me, so this is my research now. Nelson, you're much more dedicated than I am, but I also don't have to write an article about UNLV, so I'm very thankful for that. So Ricky White last week, 2 catches for 5 yards with a long of 7. So they must have had a screen get blown up. The quarterback, 4.8 yards an attempt. Looks like they had another guy, Jaden Mayava, play, who was much more efficient. I mean, I don't think they're as good as ECU. You know, this is Barry Odom's first year, former longtime Missouri defensive coordinator, then was the head coach, I believe, right after Gary Pinkel. So, you know, interesting to see him land at UNLV. This is his first year. 400 yards to Bryant, not great. I think Michigan's probably, you know, I'm gonna be. We'll give our predictions, but I'm gonna be, you know, much more conservative than I was for the ECU game because of the amount of possessions. But I do think that Michigan's gonna roll. Ricky White, hey, you know, we're not looking at Michigan pressing for no reason with guys who run 4.7 40s. So that's a breath of fresh air, as we just talked about with Jesse Minter's defense. So feeling a lot better about facing Ricky White this time around.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing with Brumfield. He's a big dude, okay? So that's the first thing I think about. Like, this guy does not mess around. 6'6", 225 plus pounds. And not only can he throw the ball, which we know he had a lot of. Granted, all of this has to be a huge mega grain of salt because it was against a team that nobody's heard of. So we have to just keep that with a grain of salt. Like, I'd never heard of Bryant before doing any.
Their basketball team occasionally will make the March Madness.
That's why I know them. Yeah.
So there's not, you know, it's not like they were up against Alabama here, folks. Okay, they were up against Bryant, but 6 touchdowns is still impressive, and he got one on the ground. Like you said, the rushing attack looks really, really good. Here's the thing: Michigan's run D is probably one of the best in the country. I'm not super concerned about that as much as like making sure that, you know, Brumfield is contained, because if he can do those things, like, that is probably one of our only weaknesses as a defense is when you have that dual or triple threat quarterback, they can break off. And if you don't have if you don't call just the right scheme at just the right time, it could be a problem. So, that would be my one thing to really look out for, honestly. And yes, the Michigan State person who shall not be named, because yes, that year I just forget it exists.
Yeah, there was I don't remember football that season. I just played a lot of Call of Duty Warzone during lockdown, as a lot of us did. But the one thing on Brumfield too, just looking at the statistics, and I'm box score watching, fellas, but 7 carries, 71 yards with a 35-yard long rush. So obviously pretty mobile. Will be a good test. Honestly, looking at Michigan's schedule, there's not a ton of mobile quarterbacks. So, who knows how much it'll help, but you never know who you're going to face in the bowl game. And honestly, running quarterbacks have given me nightmares since Troy Smith in 2004. So I never take it for granted. But looks like a dual threat guy. And like you said, John, a big, tall athlete that, last year was okay. He had a 10-5 touchdown to interception ratio. So not a bad quarterback by any stretch, but playing in the big house, going to be a lot different.
Let me jump on the back of this while we're still talking about him. So he won the job last year from a guy named Cameron Friel, excuse me, who now, okay, so let me back up a little bit, I guess. Brumfield is number 2 all time in UNLV completion percentage, okay? Second all time at 60.5%. You want to know who's first? The guy he beat out, who was the Mountain West freshman of the year, who was absolutely terrible the year he won it. I don't know how he won it. Cam Freeling. So I mean, he had 6 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's, whatever. I don't know. He's on the team. I don't really know what that dynamic there is there because Mayava played. But whatever that is, if that says anything about Brumfield, I don't know. But I think, like I said, I'll just remind you guys of what I said earlier. It's going to come down to consistency and if he can show it. And this season as a whole for them, I don't think Michigan's going to be the sample size you're going to want to look at. But I think that maybe he could show something like you're talking about as an athlete that might surprise us. The scheme defensively is much better at containing running quarterbacks than it used to be. Again, because you're not. We can get into the whole Don Brown thing again, but I think we're past that, so I don't think I need to. I think everyone sort of feels.
You don't need to open those wounds, Nelson. I think I'd just be painful for all of us.
Yeah, so I think we've had enough UNLV talk for one lifetime. So
I'm good.
Michigan. I want to talk about the Michigan side because obviously we've talked about it a little bit already. Sharon Moore is back, which is huge, right? Obviously we have this Jay Harbaugh first half, Mike Hart second half situation. Interesting. This is just how they like to roll. But I'd say the one thing I'm really curious about is how LaDarius Henderson, we already talked about a little, but how LaDarius Henderson and Trente Jones are going to do with their starting tackle audition. Just like we had quarterback auditions last year, now we have tackle auditions. This is just how the Harbaugh era goes. So Nelson, it seems like you're going to what's your take on this and how do you think they're going to perform?
I have mixed feelings about left tackle because of how much hype I heard about Carson Barnhart. I like Henderson. I really do. Okay. I think he might be a better player. But what I kept hearing about Barnhart were things I wasn't hearing about Henderson. It was, this guy might be the best lineman on this team if he can, reach his ceiling. That's what John Jansen said. And he said, Jansen said, he's the guy that I think could really surprise some people because he just hasn't quite tapped into that potential. And maybe he hasn't yet. And that's where we're going to find out, with Henderson. If Henderson takes this job, that's really interesting. Jones at the right side. I mean, he's paid his dues here. Hinton is an absolute freak athlete, huge guy, moves well. Really, I think his body type is more suited for left tackle because of how athletic he is, but he's playing right. And, that's where Michigan needs him and their lineup, it makes more sense this year. But I think Jones has a great shot at winning the job, and run game is his bread and butter. That's what Jones can, lay back on and say, I am a great run blocker. That's just what he's good at. I mean, he mauls people, and it's like what Tanner was saying, just as the sixth, lineman coming in against ECU. So that should be interesting to see if his pass blocking has improved to the way that degree that it needs to win that job. But based on the way things are going, I think Jones has a really good shot of winning that right tackle job. I'm less certain about Henderson at left.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'd like to see Henderson lock down that left tackle job. I like Carson Barnhart. I think he's a really good football player, but the way that I'm looking at this is, I don't want to get super granular, but he's a little bit undersized. He doesn't have the arm length. I think Henderson looks like a prototypical left tackle, at least in college, maybe plays guard in the NFL. I'm not sure. But I just think with his athleticism, it just gives Michigan a much higher upside. So I would like to see Henderson lock down that job. I'd also like to see Trente Jones lock down that job. So, I mean, I think it's meritocracy, right? This is Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. There's nothing that's not an open competition at any given moment. There are guys who have locked down starting jobs, and they're just too good to be passed up. But I can tell you what, if somebody was playing better than any of the starters, they'd have a chance to play and showcase their ability. And that's how Michigan runs their program. I mean, I'm excited to watch these guys and kind of see if they gel a little bit better than the lineup last weekend did. But again, I think a lot of teams are going to try to do what TCU did last year of stacking the box. And, I think it's going to be good for Michigan that JJ McCarthy looks like a top 10 pick right now, that, we can sling the ball. And that's what we're going to do for Michigan to be able to say that and come out and do that, I think is a big, kind of change for them compared to last year, where there was a lot of there were some big plays, but I don't think there was a consistency that we saw on last Saturday. So that's got me fired up with the ability to just play that complementary football with the run in the pass game and the offense. I'm very excited. Obviously, Sharon being back as the full-time OC now. No co next to his title. So going to be fun to watch him and Kirk and Harbaugh's not back yet, but eventually it'll be fun to watch those three work together to come up with the play calls and see how this offense does, in the big games. That's what we keep talking about.
Yeah, I will say I was very excited about LaDarius when he was announced to be coming to Michigan. He was a real impact player, and obviously at 6'4", 315 pounds, he is, like you said, the prototypical left tackle, and it really is who are the best two players. And let's be honest, whoever doesn't win, so because at this point I think it's Henderson, Jones, and Barnhart. And they're competing for the 2 spot. Whoever doesn't win will be the 6th personnel. I mean, we know that. Yeah. And then they'll still rotate in others. But we do enough 6-0.
And Barnhart's done that. Barnhart's been that guy before. So again, I hate it because he's I think a 5th or 6th year senior. But Michigan's trying to win a national title, and you got to put the best 11 on the field. So, and he's a team guy. He'll do what it takes to win. That's why I like the guy. Reminds you of Joel Honingford. He moves the tight end. Not saying Barnhart's doing anything similar, but he's a guy that will do what it takes to win and do what's best for the team, and that's what a leader does.
I'll give you a weird, not that he's going to move to tight end note, but this is just a weird thing I heard in the NFL. The Steelers had a center that they drafted 2 years ago named Kendrick Green, excuse me. He came into this offseason. He lost his job last year. He didn't play well. Too undersized to play offensive line in the NFL. They traded him. But they moved him to fullback. They moved their center to fullback all of camp. He was playing preseason at fullback. That this 300-pound, 6'1" center playing fullback. I just thought that was funny. That's like a weird little thing. So when it comes to moving guys, like you're talking about, that 6th lineman is sort of that tight end position, so to speak. They have to check in for run plays and pass. So it could be interesting to see. Maybe Barnhart will catch a pass if he doesn't win a job.
Well, I will say switching your center to fullback is much better than switching your fullback to defensive tackle and nose tackle, might I add. Shout out Ben Mason.
Yeah, whoa. He's been playing tight end. He's been playing tight end in the NFL now.
Did he make a team? I thought I saw he got cut.
He did get cut. Yeah, he got cut.
I'm sure he look, practice squad is like $200,000 a year. It's not bad work.
I think he'll. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he'll get on a practice squad, and some team that needs someone will sign him. He could get some snaps in.
If he was born, 25 years earlier, I mean, could have been Mike Allstott. I mean, there's no fullbacks anymore. There's no Spider 2Y banana from John Gruden anymore, unfortunately.
Frankly, I really think he should have probably been playing linebacker his whole career. That's but that's a whole different story.
Absolutely. And you've still got Belichick who runs a fullback. You've still got doesn't McDaniels run a fullback? So there's a few that still do, but it's rare. It's definitely more rare.
Yeah, not like it used to be.
So predictions, and I'm adjusting mine from 30-minute war because I have to keep in mind the clock rules, because I think that's what screwed me last time. So for those of you who watched 30-minute war, yes, I'm changing my prediction, but so I'm going 45-10. Michigan wins this at home. What do we think, Nelson?
I like that prediction. That's right in line with what I was thinking. I'm doing 41-10. I see UNLV getting 2 possessions where they can move the ball a little bit. The thing about that, maybe 41-14, but I'll roll with 10. Their offense is fast. They recruit fast, speedy players. They often recruit undersized players, especially at skill positions and on the outside and the defense and the secondary. So, that might lend them to being able to maybe break out a couple plays. Maybe a guy like Reese can run for a big, 70-plus yard game like he had against Notre Dame last year. I don't think that'll happen. But, I leave the opportunity open to happening. Maybe a return gets them in position, something like that. I don't think they're going to move the ball regularly on Michigan at all. It's just going to be maybe a late score and one somewhere in the first or second quarter.
Yeah, I'm going 45-3. I'm really impressed by this defense. Yeah, I mean, we're all very similar. I honestly, you make the extra point, you make the field goal, and you don't fumble at the goal line. It would have been 41-3 last week. I just, I think that with the addition of Sherrell Moore coming back, I think they'll get things ironed out on the offensive line. You're not going to start, hopefully, inside your own 3-yard line. I think they'll probably again get whatever they want. So yeah, I mean, I think a 45-3 win. We're all going to come back and say the same things, and they probably iron some things out, short some things up. O-line plays better, whatever. But I just don't think that UNLV has the firepower on this defense, just like ECU didn't. And I think ECU probably had them as. Again, I think ECU is a better team. So yeah, 45-3. Maybe some defensive touchdowns, run it up a little bit, but we'll see.
I think ECU is a better defensive team. That's where I think we differ, is like the offensive side of things. UNLV has a lot of vets, especially running back and quarterback. So, and receiver, I mean, across the board at skill position. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Their offensive line, though, will probably get eaten alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll. I mean, listen, we're gonna have some more coaches back, some more players back. So we'll get at least a little bit more of an indication of what things are going to look like in conference play, which I'm excited to see. So looking at a couple of the comments here, we've got a lot of comments. I'm not going to have time to get through even 1/15 of these because we've had so many, but obviously our buddy Jason, exactly. I don't care if they played Austin P. I think that's is it P. Those are superb numbers. Yeah, I mean, he did really, really well. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I got some comments about the tropical shirt. Yep. So today at work was silly shirt day. So everybody had to either wear a shirt or a hat or both. That was a little different. So I don't have a ton of like costumes or anything like that. So I just pulled out I'm in Florida, so got plenty of tropical shirts. So we went with that. JJ showed that he has NFL talent now, that he's healthy. I mean, I think we've talked, we had Dennis Fithian on, and he was predicting, potentially that JJ could go top 5. Now that I thought that was like, heck yeah, I love bold takes. But even like, could he be first round? I mean, he could.
For sure.
Oh yeah,
I will fully guarantee with his skill set, talent, like what's there, is that once he decides to leave and enter the draft, he's a first round pick. Solely based. I mean, look at a guy like Anthony Richardson who went. Will Levis went in the second or third, and I thought Will Levis sucked. Like I think Will Levis is not a good quarterback. And I went on a whole rant about this last fall before the season started, and then everyone was hyping him up, and he didn't play that well. Whole different side note, I guess. But JJ totally first round talent there.
Well, I think the point that you're making, Nelson, is that a lot of quarterbacks have snuck their way into the early parts of the draft that maybe don't deserve to. I mean, we just saw Trey Lance was traded away, played a handful of games with the 49ers, obviously had some injury issues, but just never fully got it. You look at a guy like Zach Wilson. I mean, he's still with the Jets. I think jury's still out on him. But again, you have guys, Buckeye Mike coming in with the hot take. But you think about it, right? I mean, and who knows? He's probably bluffing, but Caleb Williams is talking about not playing or not entering the draft because he doesn't want to play for a garbage team in the Arizona Cardinals, who that's just a wild situation. Not Caleb Williams, but just the Cardinals. Like, you just signed Kyler Murray to a huge extension, and now you're just tanking, and I don't know what they're going to do with that cap space. But also Drake May. I mean, everyone's kind of anointed Drake May, but would it be that shocking to see JJ McCarthy have a better year? I think he has more arm talent than May. And is it that? I think he'll be a top 10 pick is my take.
I think there are going to be 3 quarterbacks that go in the first 15. So realistically, I think that JJ, if Caleb Williams is one of them, and then I think Drake May, those are my 3 guys that I see as going in the top 15 of the draft.
Well, he's a 4th rounder at best, and Shadur will go higher than JJ. So the
is that what they're saying in the chat?
That's what they've got it. They've got it. I should turn that off. Honestly,
I got one more side note that's really interesting.
Takes, yeah.
So earlier this week, you know how Denard Robinson's the assistant director of player personnel. He came in. So I have a buddy who serves at Cafe Zola down in Ann Arbor. I don't know if you guys are. I'm sure you're familiar, Tanner. John, maybe not.
With what was that?
Cafe Zola in Ann Arbor.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a buddy that serves there and manages there, and he served Denard just I think Tuesday, and some other guy. Yeah. So he's like they were just talking about recruiting the whole time, obviously. I mean, but yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, love that place, man. I gotta go back to Ann Arbor soon.
Great
All
place.
right. Oh, hell yeah. 4 years of my life there, and I don't know where things went. Now I'm down here in Florida. I went up for the Illinois game and we had a nice little blizzard, and it was a whole thing. But there we go. So Joey Foster with the hot take. Is it hot? I mean, it's kind of hot. PSU is way too good this year. It's their year. I mean, they beat West Virginia.
And John, real quick,
solidly.
West Virginia's picked 14th in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah.
It feels very much like that Auburn win last year. I'm just saying that was a ball game. I mean, and Alar had a couple picks that probably should have been caught from West Virginia that were dropped. So let's chill.
Yes, but I do think Penn State. I think they're very good. So that being all are still impressed.
He looks like a stud. I can't even hate that one.
Yeah.
That first touchdown throw, the step up in the pocket to like twist his shoulders and then on a rope.
I was hating all offseason. I was hating. I was like, this guy's just like what we saw of him when he played Michigan. He looked so confused. Like when he came in towards the end for Clifford, I think the last like third or fourth quarter he played. And he threw like a horrible pick. I mean, it was just like a flip pass. It was bad. He looked rattled, but he looked really good. And I think Penn State's really good. And if McCord doesn't figure it out, which I think he will, hey guys, I'm not saying I'm not saying
you
it.
Do?
But I think McCord will. I think McCord will play really well. I think he'll come along.
He'll be decent. That line is going to be.
That line is the bigger question.
It's true. So we'll see how Ohio State turns out, but Penn State could end up finishing second. I still feel very strongly about Michigan.
We do have our resident Notre Dame fan who comes in and likes to represent his team. That they have the number one offensive line in college football.
If only there was an award that was given out for that, and we could know. I also saw my guy Michael was talking about like Notre Dame players leading, like having the third leading rusher of the country, and it's like you played 2 games, you played a week 0. Yes, right here. Yes, you played a week 0. Sure. He had 4 more quarters than everybody else. I don't know. They also played Tennessee State, so I don't know.
Esteem does look pretty good though. He does look good, but obviously.
He looks a lot better for Notre Dame than he would have for Michigan State. I will say that.
Yeah.
Matter of factly.
Yes, this is great. Okay. And he has played Navy and the California School of Knitting.
It's a prestigious institution,
Rudy,
guys.
pipe down and pay attention to this show.
I love it.
Can I just say this? Because UNLV, I mean, this is way more fun for anybody, us and the listeners. Rudy, I don't care. I love Rudy. I love the movie. It's a comfort movie for me. I grew up in a Notre Dame household, but my dad's from Michigan, so thankfully I was able to kind of get my fandom. But I love that movie, man. Sean Astin, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau. Just a good feel-good movie. Love watching it in the fall. He was offsides though.
So true. That was the first time I saw it. I was a little kid. I'm like, that dude's offsides.
One of my wife's bridesmaids, her uncle is the real Rudy. So I like to, every time I see her, I'm like,
wow.
So I was like, so which of your uncles was the mean brother in the movie? And she's like, that never happened. And I was like, okay, cool. It was all embellished, guys. None of it ever happened.
Yeah.
So we do have some commentary about I'm Ryan Day, keeping his starters in late in this next game against Youngstown State. I was on the Buckeye Mike, so we do a show called 30-Minute War, and Buckeye Mike represents Ohio State. I represent Michigan, and we talked about the fact that Ohio State will probably have backups in the entire second half, if assuming things transpire the way we think. So I don't know about that, unless we're going to start a Kyle McCord Heisman campaign soon.
Well, you got to get him some weapons. I mean, his top 2 receivers had 5 catches for 32 yards combined. I mean, need more out of the receivers.
It's true.
Absolutely. So we just have a couple minutes, so I just want to make sure that we save a minute to let everybody know where people can find you on the internet and a final thought. So we'll start with Nelson. So final thought for you, and where can people find you?
Final thought, Michigan's going to blow them out. That's, it's going to be a good game. I'm excited to see the 3:30 window on CBS. It doesn't feel, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't feel right watching the Big Ten on CBS at 3:30. I'm used to watching the SEC then. Something
Right.
feels but I think I'll settle into it. I think I'll like it. It's one of my favorite broadcasts. And then you can find me on michigan.rivals.com. You got it here at the Maize and Blue Review, on their socials, on their YouTube channel. I have a recap, so to speak, or a look around the Big Ten is what I call it, that I do on Sundays that I post. It's about 10, 15-minute video there. And then I've got a power rankings coming out tomorrow. I'll have a power ranking video on YouTube tomorrow for the Big Ten. And I would do a daily segment called Nelson's Nuggets as well. It's a minute long. I do it on TikTok and post it everywhere. Get little tidbits of information about just the day or what some of the hottest topics are in Michigan football.
Check out Nelson's Nuggets on TikTok.
I'm gonna hit you up,
that's
Nelson.
fantastic. That's fantastic. But thank you for being back with us another week, and everybody check him out. All the links are on there, so y'all have no excuses. Get on over and give him a follow and check him out. Thanks, Nelson, for being on, and go Blue.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy.
All right,
My turn.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at Tanner Wooten, blueby90.com. We have a tailgate at Chrysler parking lot. So any Michigan fans want to come by, we've got free beer. We have a Blue by 90 beer by North Peak Brewing. Also have a lot of the Hale Pale Ale, the Hale IPA. That is very delicious. And you can find us on our podcast, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. We have a couple different shows that I'm a part of. So thanks, everybody. John, thanks again, man. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Take care, guys.
Go Blue, Tanner.
Go Blue.
Yeah, I went to a Blue by 90 tailgate actually in the Illinois game. I think it was at MGO Patio. It was a good time. They run a good tailgate. All right, y'all. So final thing here is that we do have a couple of shows that we do every single week. So coming up Saturday is going to be Michigan Postgame Live. So I'm going to change this right now because Dre should be back for the UNLV game. And I will also be there. So it should be both of us, fingers crossed. Mondays, of course, we have Big Ten Live. 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern is Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football, and 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern is usually hosted by me. And we do a block called The Ocho. And the Ocho is a panel discussion. We have 4 or 5 members of the Voice of College Football community all get on and we all talk Big Ten football, review the games that have just happened, and then preview some of the games for next week. Tuesdays at 8 p.m., we have 30-Minute War with myself and Buckeye Mike. It's a debate show on Buckeye Mike channel. And, of course, next up on the Voice of College Football, must-see TV block, as I call it. Florida State Live coming at you right now at 6 p.m. Eastern. Miami at 7. A Texas and Alabama show at 8 p.m., as well as a West Virginia show. So we actually have multifaceted, multi-channel content coming up. We have the Pac-12 Chat Show Live rounding things out at 10:30 p.m. Eastern with Tony and Tim and TBM Chris and Rick, and usually rotating cast of those characters. So check that show out. I'm going to post the link right now to FSU Live so that there's no excuse. Get on over and let them know that John sent you, that the Michigan show sent you. And until next time, for everybody, go Blue. See you around.